Hi, Tommy Heffernan, veterinary consultant here, and in another video of concepts worth considering, something very probably different, but I think really important. And a lot of these videos come to me in my head when I have conversations around different things, and I said that's an idea worth maybe sharing, or a concept worth sharing. And why not a little bit of Japanese philosophy, Kaizen. It's a business philosophy in Japan around change and small changes over time and the power of them. And I've seen that. It's something maybe as my role as a vet has changed significantly since I've left veterinary practice a good few years ago now. But it's something that I think that can really deliver. And I'll tell you why I think it's a concept worth considering, is that when we think about challenges and we look at goals and maybe KPIs that we're looking at on farm or wherever it is, so we're always trying to move the dial, and we want to move the dial often faster than we can, and we can do that ourselves as well. And in principle, it works really well for people and our own goals. But goals are, something we set. If we look at our farm businesses, it can be things like cell count, it can be calf mortality, it can be production KPIs, and we look at those goals and we think, how do we achieve them? Or if we're in a challenge and we've got a problem, be it with mastitis or calf diarrhea or something like that, and how can we actually get out of it? And I have found really beneficial is this idea of, well, we need to change things, and that's a very hard thing to do sometimes in the short term, but particularly long-term change is something we need to really affect. So we need to understand where we are, so we're here, and where we're going to is maybe the goal. And we often, I suppose, forget about habits. So I often look, I think one of the greatest books, people might have heard me say it before, is James Clear's Atomic Habits. It's this idea that, okay, goals are important, but the systems we have in place or the processes we have in place are really, really beneficial. And they're what actually determine our outcomes. So we often, again, have ideas and goals, but it's the action in the middle here that helps us get there. And I had a discussion with a farmer this morning. I hadn't talked to him in quite a while since I did a bit of work with him, and we discussed this in a bit of detail around his herd. So we identified the goals and the KPIs. We hit certain challenges that were there, and we were looking for some solutions in a bottle. They weren't there. A lot of them were management and systems related habits that needed to be changed. And it was interesting when I spoke to him this morning about the significant difference it's been over a year and a half. So we probably overestimate what we can do in a year, maybe, but maybe underestimate what we can do in a longer time frame, like maybe 5 years. And I think, especially with farming, and that's the area I've probably the most experience in, is that really when we think about, it's about progress, not perfection. Perfection is very hard to achieve in farming because there's so many elements change over time. So lots of words on a light board. What am I trying to say? Well, probably one of the most beneficial things that I have learned over the last couple of years is the idea of understanding the habits and systems we need to put in place to achieve our goals. The goals can change, and there's a lot of external factors that can change, but our habits and systems, be it on a farm, so if we look at mastitis, it's something I've continually tried to do around good protocols in the milking parlour, good routines around the farm and how we manage cows, and optimizing biology, in particularly when they're indoors. It's probably been the most beneficial. I talk a lot about calf health, and we often talk about different things we can use on calves, or getting brilliant at the basics. But every day, the biggest driver for animal health is people. So if we can have good systems in place, we've that we're realistic about progress, and it's often not going to be perfection, well, then we can achieve a lot. And that is, I suppose, I put a name to it last year when I was reading about Kaizen, and I said, well, that is basically what I've been trying to do myself in my own life, and also with maybe on farm and in the training I was doing, is understanding that the power of small changes over time are significant. So it's not about doing 57 things on the one day, it's about picking 2 or 3 things, getting them right, and then moving on to the next one. And that's progress, and there's huge benefit for yourself when you look and adopt this protocol. So again, it's very hard to cover the philosophy of Kaizen, but I think if we can get better at knowing where we are, what are the challenges, where we want to be, because goals are important, be it in animal health or ourselves, but then really focus in on the action and the habits and focus on the idea of small changes over time, well, it's transformational. I am biased. It is just a concept worth considering. Thanks for listening.